I'm sitting by the fire, for it's time to go to bed. And it's funny when you're all alone what thoughts go through your head. I've wandered back down memory lane, and people I can see arriving for a mission at the church in Killashee. Sure, everyone would turn out by sidecar, trap or bike, and some of them would walk for miles and wouldn't mind the hike. No matter what the weather was, we'd all get up and go, for to miss the parish mission was the lowest of the low. I remember well the missioners who came from Dublin town, impressive looking figures with big long robes of brown. They had no amplifiers then, and although the church was full, them fellas didn't need them. They could holler like a bull. They'd have sermons about honesty and sermons about faith, and we always were reminded that our prayer life wasn't great. They preached about the devil, but the memory that remains is the sermon of the devil's work in dark and lonely lanes. There was one big wicked preacher I remember very well who asked the congregation if they wished to go to hell. "If anyone among you wants to languish in the flames, stand up and let us see you, and let us know your names." Well, no one moved a finger for a minute, aye or more. Then up stood Mickey Dooley. He was sitting near the door. "It isn't that I'm going to hell," said Mickey with a moan, "but I hate to see his reverend standing up there on his own." And going to confessions was the hardest part of all. We'd have to queue for ages on the seat along the wall. The priests were very different then, and some of them were dour, and many of the hard jaws would be in for half an hour. And after, they'd be telling about how each of them confessed. But the story of my neighbour, Mrs. Looney, was the best. She told them in confession how she made her marriage work when her sexual relations emigrated to New York. And out upon the footpath there would always be a stand with medals of St. Christopher. That's the fella that was banned. 1,000 different rosary beads, some big ones and some small, and a lot of holy pictures too for hanging on the wall. I got a little casket once from poor old Uncle Hughie. Inside was Blessed Martin, the image of Joe Louis. And once I got a present of a little toy clock. When you held it up before the light, you could see the church at Knock. The missioners would visit all the sick throughout the day. They'd administer the sacraments, and then they'd have the tea. And I mind the awful ructions when they dined with Twiggs McHugh, and when Mary poured the teapot, sure the tea was navy blue. Well, they couldn't understand it. 'Twas the best of Indian tea, and the water from the best spring well that anyone could see. When they emptied out the teapot on the flag outside the door, should have found the belt of Mary's coat that she lost the year before. In nearly every parish then, before the week would pass, they'd call to see some renegade who wouldn't go to Mass. And sometimes they'd be lucky and renew him in the faith, but others could be nasty souls and clear them from the gate. The neighbours would be watching, from a distance you can bet. They'd be waiting just to witness the reception they would get. And if that client should start to Mass or even Holy Hour, you'd hear the whispers going round, "The clergy have the power." You know, sometimes we are critical of times that's past and gone, the changes that have taken place, and the people who've passed on. Like us, they weren't perfect, and at times they did things wrong. But the grace of God was with them, and their faith in Him was strong. The lives they led were simple, and they sought no great reward. No greed or blind ambition came between them and the Lord. The influence they wielded had effect both near and far. Let us pray that God rewards them, for they made us what we are.